All right, we are now recording. So I want to say good evening. Let's see, it is February the 15th. And yeah, okay, now it's working. All right. And it is February the 15th. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day and all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and share our screen. Mr. James, you laughing. And I'm going to share our screen. Everybody, I'm really excited because, actually, let me not share the screen yet. I want you to, if you get a chance, go to PBS. And there is, did you hear about it? There's a new PBS special, well, documentary, should I say. And it is just so on time for what we're talking about. And it's called Gospel. Have you seen it yet?
I saw it. With what's the professor's name?
Henry Gates.
Yes.
Gates, yeah.
Yes, I saw one earlier this week, last week, or I saw it on I saw one episode, episode. I think it was this week or late last week. I think it was this week.
Yeah. I think it's this week. Well, it's been on. I want to say it started last week or it started Monday or something. Right. So I think I saw like 2 episodes, and PBS, if you miss it, they'll repeat it because I think it comes on in the evening, everybody, but I caught it in the afternoon, maybe at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was able to catch it. But anyway, it's nothing required, but I just wanted to share that with you. If you all get a chance, watch it. It is very, very good. And it also just really gives a, what's the word? A historical sense.
Right.
Right.
The one I saw, it went from Aretha Franklin to Shirley Caesar to Andre Crouch to all the way up to hip hop, modern hip hop.
I think that's the one I didn't see.
And the Clock Sisters.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that one yet.
That was interesting.
I'm behind you. I saw the part about Rosetta Thorpe and Mahalia Jackson.
Okay.
So I think I might be an episode behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go back. I have to try to look at all of them. But it was very, very interesting.
Very interesting. So everybody, those who are watching, make sure that you check out. It's called Gospel on PBS, and it just really is a good supplement to what we're talking about. And I'm also excited because we are now in Dr. Melva Costen's book, and so we're making that transition. And I just already apologize. One of the bad things that I just hate, we have so much. We have so much that I want to get through, and we just can't get through everything in our 7-8 weeks, but I try to get in as much as we can. So we're in Dr. Melva Costen's book, and please make sure that you're doing your reading. I want to start tonight with this short clip. It's just going to be about 4 minutes or so, and then we're going to come after that and discuss. This is also found in your tab for this week. Make sure that, I think you have quiz 2. Make sure you're working on quiz 2. That'll be due Sunday. And your discussion post for the week. And we will kind of now do the spin from Susan White laid the foundation of what Christian worship is, how it is expressed in a general sense. And now on the latter part of our course, we'll take a look at how that looks in the African American church, where it came from. We'll also tonight talk about some origins of some things. I really love Dr. Costen's book. I got a chance to meet her and met her once. And, I always kick myself when you don't really know who people are. So I met her several years ago when I first moved to Atlanta, and she went to my alma mater, Johnson C. Smith, and we were at an alumni event. And I shared I was going to seminary, and she said, "Oh, she taught there and everything." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." But I didn't really make the connection. She gave me her number and everything. I didn't make
Wow.
the connection. Yes, okay, Miss Jean. So I
Mm.
didn't make the connection. I lost her number. And then I
Aw.
get to seminary, right? And I get this book. I said, Dr. Costen. I said, oh my gosh, I met her. So, and unfortunately, she passed, I want to say, the latter part of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. But anyway, we are going to get started. Let me know when you can hear the audio. We're going to open up this session this evening with the Black Church in a Multicultural Kingdom.
So February
Uh-oh.
is Black History Month, and I want us to take some time over the next few weeks to
Wait a minute, hold on one second. I can't hear it. So if I can't hear it, you can't hear it. Let's see here.
Right.
Were you able to hear it?
Not much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so something's going on. Everybody stay right there. And I'm sorry. Hold on, everybody. Technical issues here. Okay, let's see if this works.
highlight the unique experience of Blacks in this country, not just their presence here.
Did
But
that work better?
specifically, I want us to consider their faith
Not
journey.
really.
So over the next
Yeah,
few
I
weeks,
just
we're going
turned
to
my
explore the Black
volume
church
up a little
within
bit.
a multicultural kingdom. Now, honestly, that might sound contradictory to some, but I want you to understand the significance. There is a rich faith history for all believers to consider that rises purely and uniquely from that African American experience. And it is only when you begin tracing that history that you discover the vibrant gospel witness that was originally brought here in chains, but now continues to shine brightly for Christ in African American congregations across this country. And here's the deal, because that's not a value proposition over what is better or what is worse that some might perceive. It's just an acknowledgement of God's extraordinary grace showing up in the most unvalued places. Now, you might have the understandable question of simply, why does the Black church even exist? And maybe you even have a more probing question like, why would a multicultural church, which is actually a diverse integration of many races, why would it affirm any effort that seems to be defined by segregation? Well, the answer to that is simple. The Black church in America did not arise from casual preference. It was born from faith-filled perseverance. Some would argue that slavery was actually the vehicle through which Africans received the gospel from their slaveholders. But a closer examination of history reveals the rich heritage of African Christianity and shows the manner in which their existing faith was actually preserved, despite enduring the evils of slavery. In other words, the reason the Black church exists is only because many of those enslaved Africans, torn from their homes, bound by chains, deprived of every measure of basic human dignity, it's only because they came to a single conclusion in response to their oppressive reality. They said, we're going to worship the Lord anyway. And that's exactly what they did.
Wow.
Private gatherings, according to oral history, sometimes in the dark of night, from plantation to plantation, they persisted amongst these newly enslaved people, desperately seeking to hold true to their spiritual identity. One author described it this way. He says this, work time already ran from sunup to sundown. Time for worship was taken from the brief period left for the personal needs of sanitation, sleep, food, child rearing. This spiritual nurture must have been highly treasured indeed to motivate the sacrifice of such limited and precious free time. See, the fact that these overworked and neglected people would leverage what little free time they had to take the life-threatening risk to prioritize worship is absolutely remarkable. And they did this primarily undercover, all while their captors would take another 100 years before they ever acknowledged that these Africans even possess souls. See, understand, this truth is nothing short of convicting, especially for a culture of modern believers who in a context of our extreme opportunity, have reduced our access, our rhythm, our priority of worshiping God. We've reduced it to a matter of personal convenience. See, they weren't allowed to worship God, but they did anyway. And we have the freedom to worship God. And so often, we just don't want to. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to think there's an awful lot for us to learn from the legacy of the Black church.
All right. Let's
Amen.
stop right there. That wasn't that something?
It's profound, very profound.
Yeah, this is deep.
Go ahead and share your thoughts while I set up our PowerPoint. What do you think about that opening? That was
Well,
really
it's
jarring. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
very, very much so. It kind of gives you a feeling of, like he said in the end, we have the freedom to worship. And whereas, in their era, they wanted to worship, but they had to
Yeah.
kind of do it underhandedly, so that their slave owners would not know what they were doing. But
Yep.
they still had that spirituality, and it was so rich. And I think that it carried on through what we're doing today.
Yes.
As black, churches per se. We still have that, legacy from them that we can carry on, our uh, ritual and faith and everything that goes, in it. And the more we read about it, this is Black History Month, so
Uh-huh.
we know that, they had a great deal to do with what we're doing, today. And we're not even hampered in, some of us are laxy-daisy. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody has to go to the church, because you carry that with you.
I know
But
what you're saying.
go and worship, because God does say in His Word that when two or three are gathered together, you know, He's in the midst. And
Yes.
when we feed off of each other, I think that is very, profound and rich. So
Good. Thank you, Miss
that's
Jean.
my feelings.
Yes, good.
Thank you, Mr. James. Did you have something? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no, just briefly, there are just two things that stood out to me.
Yes.
I also like that term. They were going to worship God anyway, but two terms stood out to me. It was sort of convicting, as a matter of fact,
It was.
because talking about the sacrifice of their limited precious time they had,
That's right.
and then with us, a matter of personal convenience.
Yes.
And because I think sometimes, as much as I think I try to be in a worshiping attitude and donate time,
Yeah.
I think about the times when I hate to use this word, sometimes where it's almost optional.
Yes, yes.
And I think this is what he was trying to get us to see,
Yeah.
that we become so comfortable not we become so comfortable that sometimes we see our worship process as optional, almost
As a second thought. Yeah.
as a second thought.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
can decide to go to church today or not,
Yeah, yeah.
That's true. I might and I might not.
and I might not.
No. And I am very, very convicted by that video. Go ahead, Mr. James.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, I thought that I wanted to share that as we open up. I thought that was a great opening for us, everybody. So let's jump right into Costen's book. We're going to open up with the theology of African American worship. Now, when we talk about the theology, it's more so how we see God, how is God expressed in African American worship. And so one of the key things I do want to say is that, let me give the disclaimer, is that no, all African Americans are not going to do the same thing. No,
Right.
all churches that might be predominantly African American are not going to do the same thing. No, we
Nope.
understand that. So I don't want anybody saying, oh, well, you're lumping us all lumping individuals into a category. So I don't want you to think that. All right. So African American worship it's rich, and it goes across whether it's denominational or non-denominational. There are still things that are, what's the word, similar, that that will be seen in those churches that are, yep, that's it. If you've been watching the gospel PBS documentary, they talk about that similarity where you can go from one church to another church and they're playing the same gospel music that is that's captivating the audience. Okay. African American worship has history rooted in Africa. If you don't get anything, I want you to remember that it's rooted in Africa. And when we start to talk about the practices, remember we talked in Susan White's book about proclamation, what we say, liturgies, the activity, community. Remember we talked about that community. That is, hey, worship that was done on the continent of Africa was done in community. African societies will see the world a little bit different than what we may see it here in our society or our American or Western world, right? So they're going to see religion as holistic. And what I mean by holistic is everything is considered sacred. The water is sacred. Your body is sacred. Your tree outside is sacred. Your baby is sacred. Everything has a purpose. So life is viewed cyclically. It's viewed as a circle. It's also viewed as holistic. And I think we've we have gotten away from that in American society. And I'm just talking American society as a whole, where we kind of compartmentalize things.
Yeah, right.
One thing's not related to the other, but really when we really sit down and think, excuse me, when we sit down and think of it, things are related to each other. We have this whole circle of life, right?
Yeah.
Death, burial, and then what happens again? Something else is born, that lives, dies. It continues to go. It continues to go on that wheel. So African societies or African worship is going to see things so much bigger and broader than we do. All right. I love this beautiful picture. And actually, I want to say in one of the documentaries that Mr. Gates does, it's not the gospel one, but it's the one before that about the Black church. He actually visited this little praise house. And yeah, it's in I want to say South Carolina, but I'll get
South Carolina, the Geechee,
it may be
South Carolina area. I think so. Yes. I think I remember.
And he walked in and it was just probably just as big as my office here, right? But just imagine, right, the power in that gathering. So in the opening in that video, the gentleman said that our enslaved ancestors just had this struggle to survive. And even though in the struggle to survive, there was a struggle and still yet a desire to worship. So the struggle for survival was real, right? So imagine, I just want you to imagine being in a strange land, right? How would you feel?
Mm. Like a stranger.
Like a
Just
stranger,
like you said, a stranger.
right? You're picked
And
up and moved away, right?
mm,
So think about it. You're picked up from your hometown. You're placed in this strange place. You don't know what these trees are, who these people are, what this language is. What would you lean on for support?
mm,
Spirit,
yeah, my inner
Spirit.
spirituality.
yeah.
Spirituality. Hey,
Mm,
look, I don't have the tangible things. I don't have the people that maybe their parents were still back home. Maybe their children were still back home, or maybe their children got split up somewhere. I don't have my house. I don't have any money. I don't have anything, just absolutely nothing, right? But nothing tangible, but the spirit,
mm,
but the spirit. And so the Black church became a community of refuge and worship, offered refuge. Okay. So they were, hey, we don't have anything. And so we're going to come together as a community. And when we come together as a community, whether we hum, we sing, or whatever, we're stronger. And then once those enslaved Africans were placed on plantations, they could get together, right, as a place of refuge. Because I don't want to be back
mhm,
in that house because the master could come and touch me or something. And then we get together many times down by water. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And it was a place of refuge. Okay. So if we look at the top of the house or above the house, say, they gathered, I should say they gathered, the gathered community first came together in secrecy. Secrecy. So what does that say to us?
mm,
Their lives were at risk just by not both by gathering and by worshiping.
Exactly. Exactly. Imagine, everybody, I just want you to imagine it's 2024 and we woke up and now we have to go to whatever type of worship experience in secret. We have to drive our car in secret. Maybe we have to park around the back in secret. We wouldn't even know what to
mm.
do.
Wow.
So these communities were called the invisible communities of faith, because they were just that. I don't want anybody to see us. We've got to worship late at night down by the river, in the trees. You see what I'm saying? When the master is asleep or whatever, or we want to get away from the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And that gathering together was, somebody had a message of encouragement. I can't even begin to fathom what our ancestors went through day to day to day. You
Mm,
know,
yeah.
um, having children. I love my children, but wait a minute, I have my children and now my children are sold off somewhere. Oh my
Mm,
goodness. Or your
mm,
husband's gone or your wife is gone.
yeah. It must have
Yeah,
been rough. I can
Hmm.
imagine. I can only imagine, you
we could
know.
only
But
imagine.
yeah, but I think by them being together like that, that
Right.
they gather strength from each other, and
They
that's how
did.
they made it. They gathered strength from each other, and
That's right.
because they knew what was up, they had to, like you said, they had to gather in secrecy and not let the master, see them worshiping.
You got that right. That's right. So there was strength together. There was strength. Awesome. Awesome. Very good, everybody. All right. So let's go right here. And then I'm going to get somebody to read on the right-hand side. So although African Americans share many common worship practices, remember what I said, this is our disclaimer. We shouldn't assume that all Black congregations are the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's go to the right-hand side of our screen. And if I could get a volunteer, what are the many liturgical practices that go back to Africa? What do they believe?
African worldview believes God created the world.
Okay.
Humans are a part of the creation. Sacred cosmos, communal solidarity, holistic relationships, and cosmic rhythm.
All right, let's talk about those.
Seven of those practices. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. So when we talk about, let's go back up here. Let's talk about the African world view. When we talk about creation, the same thing. This belief that the God created the world, that it just didn't pop up, but there is a responsible one for what we see today, the world being created. They believe that the people that have been on the earth and those who've passed away, those who are coming, are a part of that creation. So everybody is a part of that creation. When we talk about the cosmos, that's more like universe. So they believe of sacred universe. And we kind of see that as well as we read in scripture in Psalms, talking about the moon and the stars, that we're placed a little lower than angels. And so many times in Old and New Testament, but you do see reference to stars and on New Testament as well, excuse me, references to stars. But when we think about the cosmos, think about universe. And so we know the universe is also created by God as well. Communal solidarity is meaning that we are community, we are one. One can't, just be over here doing something, but this is community, remember? And even in, what was our last book? As we talked a couple chapters ago about communion and and community, koinonia, the festivals that were celebrated in Old and New Testament were done in community. Remember we talked about the holistic view. So the holistic relationships are not just one-sided, not just for business or finance, right? But looking at the individual in a wider sense. You're a person, yes, but you're a spirit. You have a soul. And so they're going to look at the individual in multiple ways. And then when we talk about the cosmic rhythm, I think I said this earlier, believing in the rhythm of life. The baby is born and the baby grows up, we get older, we pass away, and there is a cosmic rhythm to life, and it continues like a circle, right? It continues to move on. Continues to move on. And that's why I want to say something too. African religion, traditional African religion will take a different look at death. Not to say that we're not going to miss the person, not to say that they're not going to grieve the person, definitely, but also taking into the understanding that this is the rhythm of life. These things happen. Yeah. Not to say that it's pleasant, no. Not to say that it's pleasant, but the belief that this rhythm must continue for something else to happen.
Right. Just keeps on evolving.
It does. It
Yes.
does. All right. Let's go here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about our uh, African primal religions. And let's go right here. I do want to talk about, so this is going to be, if you're following in your book, I'm around page 8. But there has been a persistent negative attitude towards what we call our African primal religions. And so when we say primal religions, religions that they were practicing what they knew and they did know about God, okay, before coming to North or South America.
Mhm.
And I have to say that because we need to educate people or share with people. Many times they'll say, oh, well, slaves didn't know about God. Yes, they did. They did know about God. Remember, this is the continent of Africa. If you've been with me for the church history course, Africans were a part of church history.
Mhm.
So we had Africans that were bishops and things like that. So anyway, and listen, I'm talking about way before slavery. I'm not talking about like 19 or 1800s or something. This was way back. Mr. James, you were with me for that class, right?
Yeah.
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 So we've got to educate people because they'll say, "Oh, well, it's European, and the Europeans gave it to the slaves." Listen, and you tell them our enslaved Africans already knew God, already had a name for God.
Hmm.
What do you think kept them when they came to America or South or North or South America? Because you remember the boats dropped off different places.
Yeah. Mm.
All right. So here's the question. Let's discuss, everybody. There's always been this attitude, this persistent negative attitude toward African primal religions. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think it's well, it depends on which side it's coming from. I think to some degree.
Uh-huh.
I think from the master side, the white side,
Mm-hmm.
that negativity was to brainwash us, if you would, or to make us believe or and even to this day, to devalue
Right.
anything that's African, but
Right.
also from particularly the side of those that may be black, and you almost get to the same place that the white man taught us so much about hating ourselves that we tend to disvalue, if you would, anything that seems to be African in origin.
There you go. And where does that come from? You hit it
Hmm.
Right.
right there on the nail on the head.
Mhm. Our counterparts.
Mhm.
Right. So when you come to okay, and so even now some individuals will say, oh, oh, that's weird, or that's okay, but wait, and it's like, wait a minute, let's step back and let's look at the history. Let's look at what's going on. We can't call it weird, or just because we're practicing something over here. And when we start to study more, we'll see that a lot of the practices that are done in the Black church were adopted from, where did we get them from? We got them from Africa.
Mhm.
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 Got them from Africa. What did they carry on the boat trying to keep themselves somewhat sane? I don't even know if that's the right word,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but God.
That's right. The Spirit of God. Mm.
Yes. All right. Good discussion. Let's go to the right-hand side of our screen. And Mr. James, let's read, if you could hit the first two bullets and then we're going to stop.
African people in America expressed in a number of ways the importance of knowing God, which is true. And doctrine and creed were not important. Although I think the next one also goes along with that. Knowing God provided clarity and certainty. So I think this is really key to what you were talking about earlier, particularly when you talk about how the Europeans have taught us how to compartmentalize, and even to the point of the right time to be spiritual. So there's a proper time to be spiritual. You go to church at 11 o'clock or 10 or whatever it is on Sunday, and that takes care of your spirituality for the week. You come back around and you do it again. And particular how they were so adept at, particularly during slavery, the cruel things they could do to other human beings, to the slaves, and then get up and go to church. They could actually rape a woman, a slave woman, even impregnate her. And then, okay, that was me acting and working in that capacity. Now I can go to church, and I'm a deacon in the church. I'm a pillar of the community, and I've got all this righteousness that I carry with me. And so I think that is to understand that, and to get back to the African people in America expressed a number of ways the importance of knowing God. And that came directly from what we talked about before, in that they saw that every facet of their life was part of their relationship to God. And they weren't so important about the doctrine and the creeds, but what was important for them was the godly relationship.
Holistically, you're right. That worship was all week, all day long. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. James. Miss Jean, would you mind hitting the last two bullets, please?
Oh, okay. The African American preacher would express what God wanted them to know. Hearers would participate in a claim the reality of the experienced knowledge as they seek to know for themselves.
Thank you. And that's page 8. Thank you so much. So we have some type, so think about it. They would have some type of speaker, preacher, minister, whatever we want to call it, maybe not as formal as we, have stuff now, but they would come, they would listen to this person giving a word, giving some type of encouragement, because they wanted to experience the Creator God for themselves. Okay. Oops. Hold on 1 second. Oh, okay. I got to the end. All right. Stay right there. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So what I want to leave with you tonight. Okay, we did pretty good. What I want to leave with you tonight is, I love this picture, and I forgot to talk about this picture right here. What I wanted to leave with you tonight is, as we're starting this introduction of African American church worship, we've got to get to the point where we see exactly where it came from. So as we move through, and I love this picture here too, as we move through this book, okay, let me just say something real quick. So we'll talk, I think, next week about the ring shout. I think, let me see, let me stop share here. The ring shout, and so certain type of body movements and things like that you would see in African American church, the shouting, the frenzy, those type of things, that came from Africa.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
was right. That the shout, the some people may say, oh, so and so has the Holy Ghost.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what they say
The
about it? They say it doesn't take all that.
Yeah.
right.
That's what they say about us. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's next week. Yeah, next week, making sure I got everything. When we talk about, for example, is it next week when we talk about the ring shout? But when we talk about, let's say, for example, colors. Oh, the ring shout is in week 8. Okay, so I won't talk about it. When we talk about,
Professor,
yeah,
in that documentary that Professor Gates did, they
yeah,
talked about the ring shout.
they did.
Yeah, it wasn't.
They did. They sure did. And so I have a video of it in week 8. But things such as the shout, or you may see individuals like dancing together, that is African. The drums, or some type of,
Tamarine.
yeah, some type of beat, in a African American, and we'll talk more about this, African American church. If all we have is this, or a stomp, a foot stomp. So in those praise houses, one of the they didn't have any, piano or tambourine or nothing. They had their hands, they had their voices, and they had their feet to stomp and keep a beat. And those things we still see today. I talked about colors. So, for example, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, first Sundays are usually designated in most churches as a communion Sunday. And what would be the main color that you're going to see?
White.
White. Okay.
Oh.
Believe it or not, that comes from Africa. So the colors that were used meant things. And so anyway, so I don't want to get too much into what we're going to cover. There are some notes that I also posted in this week's module. Let me see here. And actually, these are some notes that I thought were really good that came from a seminary class that I had, that I really enjoyed that class. So I just put that in there. So it's called the African American Christian Worship. It'll say study guide. So you can just look at that a little bit later. But any questions that you might have for me?
Not at the moment.
All right.
I
All
just
right.
hope I get my password reset. I feel so out of it.
Dude.
I tell you. Yeah, because I'm used to going in,
Interesting.